Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, yes, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory, whoa, is won. Let us march on till victory is won. Is won.
Osisikele Afrika, manupakanisu pandolwayo, Iswahili tonda zuyetu. Osisikele Latina, lusapongwayo, ozamoya, ozamoya, ozamoya. Oh, Ikwele, Ozamoya, 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 Ozamoya. Oh, Ikwele, Ozamoya.
Despite my firm conviction, I have always been a man who tries to face the facts and to accept the reality of life as new experience and new knowledge unfolds. I have always kept an open mind, a flexibility that must go hand in hand with every form of the intelligent search for truth. America preaches integration and practices segregation. Truth is on the side of the oppressed. El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, better known as Malcolm X, born Malcolm Little, would be celebrating his 96th birthday this year. The working words of our Black shining prince, Brother Malcolm, are just as influential today as they were when he walked the earth. Today, we remember the man who stood deep in his conviction, who was strong on behalf of the rights of women, and made sure he spoke truth to power no matter who he had to stand against. Today, we are here to celebrate his life and his legacy. And I am so grateful to be one of his disciples and his students. And my name is Reverend Erica Williams, a national social justice organizer for Repairers of the Breach and the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival. The Northwest African American Museum, better known as NAAM, has an amazing program lined up for you this evening. Our theme tonight is beyond the man. All right, everyone, to get tonight started, we have a very special guest, someone who is near and dear to my heart, and many of you know her as a scholar. Some of you know her as a revolutionary, and some of you may know her as a mighty, mighty, powerful woman of God. But tonight, we're going to have her here as the president and CEO of the Northwest African American Museum. Please join me in welcoming to the stage tonight the great Miss Lanisha DeBaba-Layton. Lanisha, welcome, sister. We are still socially distancing, family. So tonight we are going to sit far apart, but our hearts are deeply connected. Please have a seat, sister.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and just thank you for all of the amazing work that NAAM is doing, not just here in the community, but around the world. And so it is an honor to be here tonight on a great day, Malcolm X's birthday. And so just let us know tonight, let us know why you all decided to do this event and bring Ilyasah Shabazz here tonight. Tell us why.
Well, thank you so much for hosting tonight's airing of this special evening. Yes. We at the Northwest African American Museum are committed to advancing justice and equity, cultivating educational empowerment, and centering and celebrating the Black arts. Yes. And tonight's Malcolm X Day is all about justice and equity and educational empowerment. This is the second annual Malcolm X Day program hosted by the Northwest African American Museum. And our aim is really to have us all to remember and to reflect upon the teachings of Brother Malcolm. Yes. Now, you and I grew up together, literally. Went to the same middle school and high school. Yes. And when we were coming up, we read that autobiography of Malcolm X that changed our lives. Yes. We watched that 1992 classic film by Spike Lee, Malcolm X. It transformed the way that we thought about ourselves. That is what Malcolm X's teachings help us to do. Yes. Transform ourselves so that we can be positioned to become our very best self. That's what tonight is all about.
That's it. And it's just so beautiful to be here tonight because Brother Malcolm lived in Lansing, Michigan, which is the capital of the state that we were born in. And so I lived in Lansing for a while. I had an opportunity to see his childhood home and, learn about the various things he did and his family did in Lansing. And so did you. I mean, we've had an opportunity in some ways to see his very foundation of his life. And so it's just so important tonight that we're having this session because we're at a time right now where Brother Malcolm's words are so relevant. I mean, oh God, when I think of all the things that he said, by any means necessary. He said, truth is on the side of the oppressed. I mean, there were so many things that he said. And so tonight I'm grateful that you all have decided to take us through a journey of his life from the beginning all the way until the final, time of his life. And so what is the objective that you want folks to take from learning about Beyond the Man tonight?
Absolutely. When we think about the life of Brother Malcolm, he literally taught us and showed us what it means to know thyself and to love thyself and to be self-determined. And while doing all of that, to lift others up at the same time. He taught us the value of self-education. I mean, Brother Malcolm literally read through the entire dictionary while he was transforming himself. He taught us the value of being globally minded. When he took that pilgrimage to Mecca, in a sense, we all kind of went with him because what it did is it gave us a model of how we too can take a pilgrimage, even if it is just internally, even if it's just mentally, but to move ourselves to a place of betterment, to a place of truly coming to love humanity deeply. That's what Brother Malcolm X showed us, taught us, and that's what tonight is all about: remembering, reflecting, and re-engaging, reigniting with those lessons.
I'm so excited for tonight. I thank you all for this moment and this opportunity to be with you all. This is a powerful I'm so full, y'all. I can't even remember the words that I even want to say because of the fact that Brother Malcolm was our black shining prince. He was the one who lit the trail for us to see that we were not supposed to be enslaved. We were not supposed to be captive and oppressed by a system. This country was supposed to take care of us. They brought us over here to be labor, but when we got here, we were supposed to be taken care of and have the rights that we all deserve, not just here in the U.S., but like you said, globally. And so I'm just grateful tonight for this program. I know that NAAM is on the forefront of bringing great education to our communities. So thank you for all the work that you are doing. And I know that you don't do it alone. So who all was in this process of helping you all make this happen tonight?
This was truly an effort of the entire team. We are so grateful to the Seattle Central College, led by Dr. Sheila Edwards-Lang. They have generously sponsored and partnered with us on this event. We give kudos to them and to that entire team. We thank and salute the entire team at the Northwest African American Museum. Our phenomenal staff. We thank the coordinator of this event, Patrice Bell, and the entire team. We give kudos to the man behind the camera, Michael B. Maine. I mean, it was truly an effort to conceive this and to produce this, and we hope all will be transformed by this. And we thank you also for being here tonight, Reverend Erica.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I am, as they say, I'm fired up and ready to go. Lanisha, I honor you, dear sister. Thank you for your work, and thank you again for your witness. And thank you all. Y'all, I told y'all, my shero, Miss Lanisha DeBaba Layton, thank you for being with us tonight. And you all stay tuned. We have so many great people coming up tonight. And next we will have actually the president of the Seattle College, Central College, Dr. Sheila Edwards-Lang. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. And so tonight's program was made possible by the generous support from Seattle Central College. And so tonight we have the distinguished honor of having with us here tonight Dr. Sheila Edwards-Lang. And so Dr. Lang, welcome to the stage. We are grateful for you and for Seattle Central College. Come on in, my dear sister. We are socially distancing, I told y'all. So we're apart, but our hearts are deeply connected. So Dr. Lang, thank you for being here with us tonight. And so tell us why this event was so just dear to the heart of Seattle Central College and why you all wanted to sponsor tonight's event.
Well, Seattle Central College has always had social justice and racial equity at the heart of everything that we do. And right now, as we're in the middle of the racial reckoning that's happening in our country, we are the epicenter for a lot of that activity in our city. Many of our students, our faculty, and our staff are the activists who are out on the street, really calling for police reform, for more funding in our community. And so it's just well aligned with our values as a college and what we're trying to do in the community.
Wonderful. And you know, we're living in a time now, these young folks have taken up the mantle of Brother Malcolm X, and they have definitely said it like, if we don't get no justice, you won't get no peace. And they are very strong about this call of equity and racial justice. And so tell us tonight what Seattle Central College is doing to help further this cause of justice in this community.
Well, you know, one of the things that we've done is we've made it part of our curriculum. So we are trying to make sure that we are giving young people the tools that they need to go out and be informed and impactful activists. So last year we launched an emphasis in our AA degree on social justice, so students can learn about, you know, what are the levers that you need to have to affect change in our community. So building it into our curriculum, making sure that our students have the tools that they need and the support that they need to be out in the community. We changed our name about 4 years ago, no, 6 years ago now. We took community out of our name. We were called Seattle Central Community College, and we changed to Seattle Central College. And when I got there as president, what I said was, you know, community has to be at the heart of what we do. So we're doing partnerships with community-based organizations to work on things like homelessness, to work on things like teacher diversity. We just launched a new program to get more Black teachers into Seattle Public Schools. We have a historically Black college initiative where we're articulation agreements with historically Black colleges so that our students, when they get ready to transfer, they have options other than the local predominantly white institutions that they can go to. So we also launched a program called Fellas Friday, where we're really focusing on empowering our African American men. Yes. And we're doing that in partnership with the City of Seattle and with Seattle Public Schools, who also have African American male initiatives. It's part of, it came out of My Brother's Keepers initiative that President Obama started.
That's it. This is amazing, and this is just good to hear all of the work that is taking place. And honestly, you are bringing in the spirit of Dr. Betty Shabazz tonight, because we know that she continued the work of Brother Malcolm. I mean, she did so much for this nation and this world, so we have to honor her tonight. And she was very much, you know, doing work with Medgar Evers College in New York. And so I'm grateful to hear all that you all are doing at Seattle Central College. And I would just ask you tonight, as the president at the helm of this great institution, how have you been impacted by Brother Malcolm?
You know, it's interesting because I grew up in the South. I was born in Mississippi, and I've always considered myself a sort of a Martin Luther King kind of civil rights activist. And I even describe myself as an activist president. But the more that I got to know about Brother Malcolm, I thought, you know, we cannot have change in our community without both the principles of Martin Luther King and the activism and the fervor that Brother Malcolm brought to standing up and saying, we're not going to stand for this in our community anymore.
Yes.
That it's time for us to demand change. And I think that's what young people today are doing. That's what, you know, folks are in the street doing right now, saying enough is enough.
That's it.
We have tried to be nice about it. We try to negotiate our way, but police are still killing our Black brothers.
Yes.
And sisters.
Yes.
You know? It seems like every day, like, when is enough enough? And I think, you know, that spirit of Malcolm X saying, enough is enough. We are going to stand up and fight for our community.
That's it. And that's the spirit that we are embodying tonight in this program. Because Brother Malcolm made it very clear, by any means necessary. And so, Dr. Lang, we thank you for your example, for your witness. Thank you for what you're doing to make this community better, but not just this community, this state, and this nation better. So we thank you tonight. And I would just ask you to speak to the people tonight to tell them what you hope they will get out of tonight's program.
I hope that people will learn more about the legacy of Malcolm X and what his entire family did. Not just him, but as you said, Sister Betty and his daughters.
Yes.
I want this next generation to know more about his work. Yes. And so we're going to invite all of the students from the college to be part of it. We're building in specific programming that will lead into the speech that she does that night. So we're pretty excited to be partnering on this.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad you are partnering with us, and we look forward to this just not being one event we do together, but continuing to work together to bring liberation and justice to all of humanity. So, Dr. Lang, we thank you tonight for your work, and we are so grateful for Seattle. Oh, I was about to say community college. I was about to add it back in there. Seattle Central College on tonight. And so, Dr. Sheila, we thank you, and we look forward to furthering tonight's conversation. What a powerful conversation tonight with our dear friend and sister, Dr. Sheila Edwards Lang. We are so grateful she could join us tonight to give us a word of hope and encouragement in this fight for justice. And so I hope you're sticking and staying with us tonight. Don't go anywhere, because we're just getting started. Coming up, we have a powerful performance from Cutting Up Dance Crew, and we'll have a spoken word performance from Naakua, who is going to speak truth to power. Stay tuned and stay with us right after these messages.
reflecting on the life of Malcolm X, the Northwest African American Museum celebrates one of the nation's premier voices for dignity and equality for African Americans. In joining in this reflection, we add our voices to those pressing against the norms that exclude anyone from the best opportunities of democracy. These practices of exclusion long aimed at Black and poor people. I direct the Race and Pedagogy Institute, in which we envision a society where the systemic causes of racism have been uprooted and in which we are energized to reimagine a world oriented toward the shared experience of liberation. To that end, then, our mission is to educate students and teachers at all levels to think critically about race, to act, to cultivate terms and practices for societal transformation, and to act to eliminate racism. Any organization, then, with education and equity alongside empowerment at the core of its mission is a partner we're happy to celebrate. And so we celebrate NAAM in its 13th year, and we celebrate this special program, Education, Equity, Empowerment. In your push to help us acknowledge, enjoy, and be educated by the histories, art, and cultures of people of African descent is an act that enriches us all. Congratulations. Now.
All right, drum roll, everybody. The moment that we all have been waiting for. I know that you've been waiting because I sure enough have been waiting to interview Ilyasah Shabazz. Ilyasah is an award-winning producer, author, and educator. She has authored 5 historical novels and has served as project advisor for the PBS award-winning documentary, Prince Among Slaves. She is co-chairperson of the Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Memorial and Educational Center. In her work to preserve the legacy of her dear parents, she has dedicated herself to institution building and intergenerational leadership development with the tenets of diversity, equity, and inclusion. As president and founder of Ilyasah Shabazz Enterprises, she produces a variety of forums dedicated to power, possibility, and sovereignty. Ms. Shabazz is a member of the SOAR Higher Cabinet Committee for New Paltz College, a member of the Advisory Council for the Equal Rights Amendment Coalition, and serves as a trustee for the Harlem Symphony Orchestra. And she is a oh-so-bad soror of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Ooh. And so please, join me tonight to welcome my dear soror and shero, Ilyasah Shabazz.
Thank you so much. My goodness, what an introduction. Erica, I'm so happy to be here, soror. You know, I'm honored to be with you all this evening at the Northwest African American Museum in Seattle to culminate the virtual celebration of my father's 96th birthday. I can't believe he would be 96. He was such a young man when he did his work. It has been such a pivotal year. In the wake of George Floyd's death, many have taken to the streets to express anger over systemic oppression and racial injustices toward African Americans. So many young people were politicized through protests and marches in the aftermath of his death. We all witnessed the negligence and divisiveness of a failing administration, and the lesson for our young people is that unity and moral character matters. Not divisiveness, not cheating, lying, or stealing. Cheaters lose, and character, moral character, is vindicated. My father said, if you stick a knife in my back, 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. And so while this last year brought some awareness, like the toppling of Confederate monuments, the knife of systemic racism remains firmly in Black America's back. We need to do more to ensure Black, Brown, African, and Indigenous Americans are no longer murdered by police. We need to do more to critique, dismantle, and reform the unjust separate sets of rules under which America operates. Each of our roles in this fight, in this quest and demand will be different. I see my role as an educator. Americans who choose not to understand or acknowledge the truth must hear it again and again and again. America's truth and its history must be taught to all of our students in every school and at every level. This is our path forward. We need educational textbooks that teach every American child that Black history is American history, and that American history is also Hispanic history, Native American history, and Asian history. There's no American history unless each and every voice is heard on the pages of those textbooks. If the voluminous pogroms against the Aboriginal Americans, slavery, Jim Crow, the 1921 massacre in Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the 1923 massacre in Rosewood, Florida were taught in high school history classes, along with the Holocaust of the 1930s, European Jews, and the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, then more citizens would understand the need for the federal government to appoint a committee to explore financial remuneration and the psychosis of those who have been systematically targeted for extinction by his fellow man. If students learned in world history classes that Africa is the cradle of the most advanced civilization ever to exist in mankind, as well as the impressive kingdoms of Benin, Ghana, Mali, Egypt, to the same degree they learn about ancient Greece and Rome, we might better appreciate the beauty and magnificence of non-white civilizations in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. So how do we as individuals react to this moment? What do we do to help bring about more egalitarian policy and educate Americans as a start? We as a people must be self-reflective, acknowledge truth, and be accountable for the narrative. Even if you were not the callous policeman who knelt on George Floyd's neck, even if you were not a violent insurrectionist charging the Capitol, you likely have been one of the 3 officers who stood by as Mr. Floyd called out to his deceased mother, grasping for his last breath. Or you have been one of the officers who stood by at the Capitol. We all at one time or another have watched and allowed injustice in the world around us. But education is the key to being woke to these very injustices. My mother, Dr. Betty Shabazz, taught me this path. She believed education is the most powerful tool to combat the injustices of systemic American racism. I follow in her footsteps as an educator. My father further believed in action to obtain justice and rid this nation of institutionalized racism and discrimination. My parents' lessons about education and activism are more relevant than ever. We must continue to exert power, pressure, as much as possible to change a system whose ingrained divisive phobias are killing us. My prayer and hope is that this moment, this most challenging year, will present, and future generations of problem solvers focusing on a holistic approach to human rights, that this must be transformative, where each of us has an investment and where each of us must become an agent for change. My name is Ilyasah Shabazz. I am a writer, community activist, professor, thinker, advocate, and I am one of 6 daughters of 2 loving parents, Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz. And I'll take this moment just to acknowledge my sisters, because my father was about 6'5", my mother was about 5'9", and they had very tall daughters, 6 of us. And if any of my sisters thought that you guys thought that I was the only daughter and I did not acknowledge them, I would never hear the end of it. So Malcolm and Betty had 6 tall, opinionated, kind-hearted, loving daughters. On February 21st, 1965, my mother, sisters, and I witnessed the public assassination of her husband, our young father, Malcolm X. I'm told my mother placed her entire body over my sisters and me to protect us from the gunfire and to make certain we could not see the terror before us. Growing up, my mother made certain she kept our father's essence, his love, values, humanity, and morale very integral in our household. She wanted to make sure that we did not suffer from the immediate loss of our father's love and presence. And even though he was physically gone, my mother made certain that her husband remained a part of our household conversations for as long as I can remember. I knew my father loved me, that he had impeccable integrity and a great sense of humor. I knew that he loved music, literature, poetry, history, the arts, that he was brilliant, compassionate, kind, loving, and that overall he was led by his service to God. In college, I began to learn about the inaccurate portrayals of his character and life's work. I began to understand that my mother safeguarded the legacy, the negative depictions of her husband, so that his legacy and work could be accurately realized for the benefit of future generations. Today, as we celebrate the legacies of civil rights icons, I would like to share with you just a bit about my father's accurate story and his impact on America and the world as a whole. My father, Malik El Shabazz, popularly known as Malcolm X, burst onto the scenes of the civil rights movement as a young man just in his 20s. The climate in America was antithetical to the humanity of African Americans. Jim Crow and separate but unequal was the law of the land. The rights of African Americans were vanquished under color of law. Individuals and organizations terrorized Black people without fear of repercussion or consequence. America's Black population was essentially without protection and without hope for a just America. In humble submission to God, Malcolm X stood up and he stepped forward. He jolted the conscience of an America that lacked a moral compass. He quickened our spirits with his urgent demands for equal justice. We came alive with his insistence that America live up to her promise of liberty and justice for all. He devised a plan of action that would empower all Americans to live up to our greatest potential. In just 12 short years, a young and courageous Malcolm, just in his 20s, rose to the defense of African Americans victimized by race discrimination. He challenged notions of bigotry and entitlement. He redefined the American civil rights movement to include a human rights agenda. And he worked tirelessly to unite Africa and the diaspora towards a singular international struggle for freedom and independence. The enormity of this personal sacrifice is not only appreciated by Americans, it is equally appreciated by the global community. The magnitude of his contribution to world history must not be ignored. I think it is fitting that Malcolm X is regarded globally as a brilliant human rights strategist ahead of his time, and that we are finally catching up. It is equally fitting that we can catch up. Many of his predictions have come to fruition, and failure to adopt his strategies has increased the economic, political, and social divides that we see today. Malcolm also retains his place in history as the most celebrated American Muslim responsible for the exponential growth of Islam in the United States. The autobiography of Malcolm X has been hailed as one of the most important nonfiction works of the 20th century. It remains on the New York Times bestseller list, and it is required reading in academic institutions throughout the world. The Audible, narrated by Lawrence Fishburne, was on the best sellers list during the first week of its release. And just a few years ago, I was blessed to read one of my father's diaries. It was a treasure trove of timeless insights and perceptions that revealed the essence of this remarkable young man. In the pages, Malcolm spoke quietly and earnestly during the most critical time of his life. I could experience this, my father, without the cluttering effect of rhetoric and analysis by historians, scholars, or casual observers. He was removed from the discord and pandemonium of systemic racism and its effects. His thoughts, without outside interference, manipulation, or intent, to assess the magnitude of this young American icon, Malcolm X. His diary permitted me to travel with him during his Hajj and his journeys throughout Africa and the Middle East, observing his commitment to establishing a blueprint for peace and freedom. Reading the pages, one can better understand that Malcolm battled for all of us until the very end. As I read my father's diary, I could not help but reflect on my own Hajj. When I journeyed to Mecca, I was honored by the sacred invitation to make the religious pilgrimage and to follow in my father's footsteps to this ancient lands, the lands of the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran. My father has always been my greatest source of inspiration. To embark on his journey would prove sacred beyond measure. I felt spiritually connected to him to personally experience the journey he had detailed in his autobiography's chapter on Hajj. With each step along the marbled walkways of Medina, I thought of my father and my mother. I thought of my ancestors who birthed civilizations and those who were enslaved. I thought of my 5 sisters, my nephews and niece. I thought of the many millions of people who were subjugated and unable to reap the benefits of their humanity. I prayed that God would bless my parents for their tireless sacrifice and service. I sought healing for my family from the devastating loss of our mother. I asked God to grant happiness, safety, and protection to all of us, and that he would assist us to reconstruct a society where all of our children could properly thrive. As I slept beneath the skies at the Prophet's Mosque in Medina, I thought of Malcolm, whom he had served with all of his heart and with every fiber of his being, younger than I am even today. For example, in 1952, at the age of 27, Malcolm became the chief spokesman for the Nation of Islam. He is credited with increasing 4 temples to 15 temples in less than 3 years, and to 50 temples in 22 states by 1959, just 2 years later. Membership increased from several hundred to hundreds of thousands due to Malcolm's focused leadership and organizational skills. The organization's income ballooned to tens of millions of dollars annually. Malcolm was also responsible for ensuring that this organization embraced the principles of self-help, self-determination, and cooperative economics. They owned bakeries, barbershops, coffee shops, grocery stores, cleaners, a printing plant, retail stores, real estate, including 3 apartment buildings in Chicago, a fleet of tractor trailers and farmlands in the states of Michigan, Alabama, and Georgia. The children attended separate schools owned and operated by the organization due to Malcolm's focused dedication and all of his work. Malcolm also founded the first newspaper for this organization in the attic of our home. It is no wonder that as a result of Minister Malcolm X's determination, dedication, and unparalleled work ethic, that the organization held the largest Black-owned businesses in the United States during the Jim Crow era of race discrimination and legalized subjugation of African American citizens. Near the end of his life, he embraced the global Sunni Islam. Part of this journey was changing his name from X, the unknown, to El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. The name Shabazz has a long history in the founding of civilization and has various meanings: eagle, falcon, royalty. But one of its most popular meanings is mighty. For some of us, the word mighty evokes ideas of grandeur or dominance. But my father was mighty in a different kind of way. Yes, he was strong, but he was compassionate. Yes, he was vibrant, and some would even say fiery, but he was sincere. And yes, he was an icon, but he was a fellow human being who championed human rights for everyone because of his faith in God and because he believed in our collective humanity. Yet he still had detractors, individuals who wanted to see him and his family hurt. As I circled the Kaaba, drank from the Zamzam, and walked between the hills of Safa and Marwa, I felt extremely grateful that my father was blessed with a brief respite from the venomous and vindictive rancor associated with his break from this organization and the constant danger created by powerful forces within our government having declared him an enemy of the state. I prayed at the Prophet's Mosque with gratitude that my father was treated with honor and distinction in this first world land of kings, priests, and scholars of historical antiquity. During my Hajj, I was blessed to view the Holy Kingdom through my father's eyes, the eyes of a man who had seen the senseless brutality of racism and discrimination. In his childhood, he had witnessed his family threatened, harassed, and chased by those who believed the untruths of racist propaganda. As a 5-year-old, he had watched his family home burned to the ground by a mob of the KKK, a racist, white, bigot, terrorist organization. Young Malcolm and his siblings gathered around their mother when she was told that her husband had been lynched by local Klansmen, the Black Legion, tied onto a train track to sever his torso in half. Young Malcolm witnessed unscrupulous politicians maneuver to steal his family's land from his widowed mother during this Great Depression in a state-run institution which intruded on his childhood and separated him from his siblings. As I climbed Mount Arafat to pray for my parents, I was overwhelmed with gratitude, knowing that my father had walked this very land, a Negro embattled since his 20s to gain historical knowledge of the true identity and hence equal rights for Black, Indigenous people of color worldwide. I was overwhelmed with gratitude that this young man, Malcolm X, spent his adult life challenging a government whose systemic racism shackled him with the confines of second-class citizenship. Although his government responded by unleashing all the power of its enforcement agencies and espionage against him, Malcolm remained steadfast and undeterred. He would not quit on us. Rather, he persisted in the mission to obtain equality for all. During this God-given respite, for the first time in his life, Malcolm enjoyed the freedoms of first-class citizenship with the dignity and recognition conferred on him in this first world land. As I read my father's diary entries, I envisioned Malcolm, a young man blossoming in his 30s, selflessly circling the globe after completing his Hajj, not with security, not with any aids or assistance, but a young man all alone in search of solutions for the human condition of senseless brutality. And I have to tell you that that one hurts, just knowing that my father did all of this work alone for us. He is perhaps best remembered for meeting with several African heads of states to internationalize the plight of African Americans. We must not forget, however, that Malcolm was received as a worthy peer by kings, presidents, and prime ministers. Leaders of nations listened to Malcolm's wisdom, his brilliant ideas for ending the atrocities caused by war and unequal distribution of the world's wealth. I will always be grateful that Malcolm carried each of us with him, our plight, our pains, and our concerns, as he occupied the world stage with dignity and grace. Malcolm's command and appreciation for this historic world stage moment was not surprising. For many, he had forever been the powerful and effective born leader. Malcolm was blessed with tremendous intellectual and analytical abilities, and he possessed enormous compassion for others, all of which situated him well for extraordinary leadership. However, most observers do not know that this capacity for leadership was nurtured by his parents, Earl and Louise Little. My grandparents prepared their young son, Malcolm, and his siblings for the role that he would eventually occupy. Young Earl and young Louise instilled in their son the values of education, accountability, and responsibility. As young Garveyites, they were models of selflessness and sacrifice as they deferred personal freedom for the betterment of society. Malcolm understood that achieving the goal of peace required truth and education and a healthy identity formation based on historical facts. He understood that oppression destroys the psyche and prevents maximum development in both the oppressed and the oppressor. Malcolm understood that misinformation impedes the growth and maximum development of nations, and that race discrimination in particular was preventing America from claiming the greatness that she was destined to achieve. My father purposed to educate all of us about Africa's significant contribution to world history. He taught us that people of the African diaspora were not simply descendants of slaves, but that our ancestors were the architects of ancient civilizations who built the pyramids, cities, and ships that archaeologists are continuing to uncover even today. Prior to the transatlantic slave trades, these refined and industrious African men and women were priests, scientists, physicists, astrologists, warriors, farmers, musicians, dancers, artists, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, neighbors, and friends. Malcolm then assessed the transformational power within himself to become an internationally renowned human rights strategist. He remained devoted to the cause of equality and freedom. He accepted the mantle of leadership in the human rights struggle because he understood that we are all brothers and sisters under the oneness of God. Malcolm envisioned the world renewed by peace. He denounced war and injustice as indefensible devastations of human and environmental resources. My father provided the biggest critique of America, and he worked diligently to expose many of the shortcomings in our human nature, including a planned petition before the United Nations that would call into question the superpowers of the world for denying individual basic human rights. A resolution supported by many of the African and Muslim countries of the world. His vision for a more egalitarian world, rooted in universal human rights, resonates even to this day. Malcolm, father, remains a source of global inspiration. Even President Barack Obama recalled finding solace in Malcolm's example as he searched for his own identity when he wrote, "Malcolm's repeated acts of self-creation spoke to me. The blunt poetry of his words, his unadorned insistence on respect, promised a new and uncompromising order, martial in its discipline, forged through sheer force of will." As I read my father's diary entries, I gained greater understanding of Malcolm the man. I acquired newfound appreciation for the courage and commitment required to leave the holy land of great martyrs and principled believers. El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz Malcolm X, the man who would rise to iconic stature, who would refuse refuge for himself and his family, and choose instead to stand for all of us. He would complete his historic journey and return to the United States, knowing full well that enemies committed to his destruction lie in wait. The invaluable gift of my father and his life is this wonderful lesson of faith. My father trusted our Lord with his life and with the well-being of his family. He served God unconditionally. He remained faithful to the very end. When the fateful day of his martyrdom arrived, we were there with him. My mother, my sisters, and I sat up front and stage right at the Audubon Ballroom in New York City, which is now the Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Memorial and Educational Center. We were present for his address regarding his new federation when the shots rang out and he fell forever from our embrace into the arms of his creator. His work and commitment assure me of his eternal peace. He would be proud of all of us who continue to live with his legacy in our hearts and in our minds. He would be proud his words and actions live on through me and through you. And although he would be upset knowing we have not yet fully achieved his vision of global human rights, he would be proud to know that there are many among this generation of youth who continue the fight. This generation of change agents who recognize that those in power have misused it and are willing to do the work to see change. I thank you for embracing my father as he embraced all of us as human beings in a shared struggle for a better, more just world. His work and commitment assure me of his eternal peace, and I pray that we meet him in the highest location of paradise. His unwavering love of justice, dedication, and truth as a leader continues to animate our liberation movements, to our understanding of humanity worldwide. And I thank you so much for allowing me to share this time with you. I'm on the East Coast, and I think here it is a little after 10 o'clock, but I'm so happy that I could take this time and unwind and share with you there on the West Coast. Thank you so much. God bless you, and just thank you. I can't hear you. Erica, I can't hear you.
She can't hear me.
Oh, now I can.
Shabazz,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you tonight. My soul is so stirred. You spoke tonight about your father and your beautiful dear mother. So tonight, I just want to personally say thank you. Thank you for keeping their witness and their work alive. Thank you and your family. You all sacrifice so much on behalf of Black people all over the diaspora. Thank you tonight. May you know that we love you, we honor you, and we appreciate. I'm so serious, Soror. My heart is so full tonight. Thank you for being with us tonight. I'm from Saginaw, Michigan, right up the street from Lansing, Michigan. And I had the opportunity to stand by the place where your father lived when he was a child. They have a marker there in Michigan. And as a child, I always just had a fascination with Brother Malcolm and your dear mother. And so tonight, to be here with you, to see their legacy, is such an honor. But as you said in your speech tonight, the work continues. I am one of those young people who believe, like your father, if we don't get no justice, you won't get no peace. So tonight, we are just so grateful to have you here. For the words that you spoke tonight, they touched our hearts. I know I'm not the only one. I'm in tears tonight because I'm so full, because if Brother Malcolm was here today, I wish I could just hear him speaking to us. From the fight in Palestine, to the fight in Minnesota, to the fight in North Carolina, where the DAs have said that the killing of Brother Andrew was justified. Brother Malcolm would be our messenger, letting us know that we can't back up, we can't stop, but we've got to go forward. So tonight, I want you just let us know tonight, what is it that we as a people should be doing? Because we can't come on here just to hear your words. And as the Holy Scriptures say, be hearers and not doers. What can we do to continue the work of Brother Malcolm and Dr. Betty Shabazz?
Well, listen, I think that we must critique, dismantle, and reform these unjust, separate sets of rules under which America operates to bring more egalitarian policy and to ensure that everyone is accountable, right? To educating all Americans as a start. You know, I'm on a cabinet committee, and I'm talking about the importance of our education curriculum being truthful, right? Being accurate. And so, you know, the people on the committee thought, well, this is great. So we have to make sure that we get into the Black communities to make sure that these young Black children are learning. I said, it's not just the young Black children. All of the children need to understand, if civilization began on the continent, and we see all of these beautiful pyramids and this absolutely exquisite monuments of antiquity, then certainly we need to understand the people that created these thriving civilizations, that conferred degrees to scholars of the world, that were taken to other parts of the world, and then the indigenous people who were already here, right? This was not a barren land. There were people who were already here who looked like you and who looked like me. And so we have to make sure that all of our children have the opportunity to understand that they are worthy of so much self-love, just as God created them, that they are worthy of this self-love. And had it not been for those ancestors of ours who were enslaved, that no American today would have the opportunity to call the United States of America, the leader of the free world, the land of milk and honey, their home, because our ancestors helped to cultivate this land and made significant sacrifices and contributions. And so it's our responsibility to control the narrative and make sure that we honor them in history, and that they're not reduced to just slave, but that they were enslaved human beings, enslaved, refined, and industrious people who made a significant contribution so that every single American person can call the United States of America their home. And I think this is what it looks like when we control our narrative, when we control the narratives ourselves, right? And we don't sit back and wait. You know, as my father said, you know, only a fool would sit back and allow his enemy to teach his children. That we don't just sit back and complain about what our children are learning, but that we participate in creating the curriculum, that we participate in controlling the narratives. And that goes across the board for everyone, right?
Yes, thank you, Sora. And it's just so interesting you talk about with our education. And here in this country, the USA, and how we don't even take care of our children. We have the highest rate of child poverty in the world right here in the US. And your father talked about that. If you have poor education, it just creates a downward cycle for your life. And so, what would you say today to the education system and how our students are not being given the adequate education that they need, even being taught about Brother Malcolm X? Like, that's not in the school system. They need to know this. What would you admonish educators and administrators to do?
Well, again, I think that, our demands and the rallies in our society, we're talking about police reform, we're talking about education, we're talking about public safety and a sundry of other issues that need more than a moment's attention. And what I'm happy about is at the Shabazz Center, and I know I was looking at the programming that you guys do at the Northwest African American Museum, right? Is that we have intergenerational dialogue. And, we create all kinds of curriculum. We listen to the young people, they listen to us, and we figure things out, right? And I know that this is the same thing that you guys are doing over there. One of my latest book, The Awakening of Malcolm X, we discovered that Malcolm was quoted 53.7 thousand times per hour per day in social media, which is the clearest indication that young people are still attracted to Malcolm, in spite of the false image that was portrayed of him. After all that happened this past summer, this is what we saw, because Malcolm spoke truth, and we know that truth is timeless. So we just have to continue doing the work and usher our young people and continue with this intergenerational discussion, right? And address these issues ourselves. And this is happening, but I don't think that we can lose focus, because look, in the 1960s was the civil rights movement when we made such great stride. And then just years later, Nixon was announcing the war on drugs. How does that happen? So it's when we make these advances and become content, we think, that now we can, rest. But it's being persistent and having a check mark and strategies so that when our marching, protesting, and demonstrating is over, we don't go back home and not accomplish anything, but we have to check mark everything that we want to accomplish and hold our politicians accountable.
That's it. And it's so interesting you said that. And even as you were speaking about your dear father on tonight, and you talked about he was faithful to the end. He stayed the course. He walked his journey, and he did not waver. He was committed. And we see a lot of that now. Well, we don't see a lot of that now, where people go out to a protest for 2 minutes and then they back doing whatever else they want to do, not sticking with the fight for justice and liberation. And what words would you admonish people on tonight to understand this ain't a moment? Because what we're seeing in Palestine right now, your father was on the forefront of it years ago, and we're seeing it again now. So if you're going to be in this movement, you got to know it is a long haul. It's not just a strike one day. You've got to stick and stay. And so how have you, even in this fight for liberation, you've been through your own journey with your family and just seeing the world at large. What can we do to make sure we stay in this fight and be like Brother Malcolm and finish our course?
Well, right. And that's why this whole thing of, being together, understanding the necessity of that village, raising our children, right? We have to guide them. They can teach us, we can guide them, right? And it's, one hand feeds the other. But I think that we have to continue to have this action-driven dialogue with our young people and continue to build and the work that you guys are doing at the museum, the work that we're doing at the Shabazz Center, Dream Defenders. There are all these different organizations and movements where, young people are becoming more involved, but we have to make sure that we stay involved, that we don't get, fall for these divisive tactics, right? The divisive tactics and phobias or this complacency that we've made progress and stop working, but that this is a lifetime kind of work.
Yes. And so tonight, as the Palestinian people are being bombed and being killed, I said earlier, your father was on the forefront of Black internationalism and seeing the global fight for humanity. We see that our very own president is allowing for billions of dollars to be sent to the Israeli military to harm the Palestinian people. What would your father, you believe, say tonight to our president?
I think what my father would really say, I do believe if my father were alive, because he was such a result-oriented person, that this would not be the same as it was 55, 6, years ago as it was when he was alive. He sought solutions. But it is important to know that these are indigenous people who are being bombed. This is ethnic cleansing, and it's all about coming together and uniting with all oppressed people around the world. We can't think that it's only about us, right? We have to fight against injustice of all kinds, have the capacity to recognize not from a black and white perspective, but from a right and wrong perspective. And that is what I instill into my students. And it was such a pleasure to be with you this evening. You are absolutely, wonderful, dynamic. I feel your passion. I feel your love. I feel your honesty. And I'm so grateful.
I'm so honored to be here with you tonight. And I know that we have to let you go. You have to go to bed, my dear sister, because it is late on the East Coast. But if you could just have a conversation with your father tonight, what would you say to him on his birthday today?
I'm just so grateful for him because he was a young man. And, again, when I read his diary, it just dawned on me that he walked alone, and it was during a time when we were not flying. People weren't going on vacations. Most people weren't flying on airplanes. And for him, to go and to do this work, for us, I'm so grateful and I'm so appreciative. And again, when I went to that part of the world and I saw, it was a state of nirvana. It was pure. It was certainly historic. I was so grateful that he was able to experience it. And I had to, envision, myself in his shoes and knowing that he grew up at the height of Jim Crow, right? And the challenges of, being a Black man with his father gone, his mother gone, and just running from his identity as a young Black man against the backdrop of Jim Crow, only to land firmly on his feet. I'm so proud of him. I am so proud of him, and I am so proud to be his daughter. And even if I was not his daughter, I would still do the work that I'm doing, because I think it is extremely important that we, as my mother safeguarded her husband's legacy, not so that her husband could be famous, but for the benefit of future generations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And just final comments as we close out. What should we all remember about Brother Malcolm that is not often said?
He was a young man, and he believed in our humanity. He wanted the best, just what we would want for ourselves, he wanted for all of us, not just for his family, but, for the family, the universal family, and especially his people.
Thank you so much. We honor you tonight. We continue to pray for you and your family and the Shabazz Center, and we thank you. And I'm here to let you know tonight that there are some young warriors who will follow in the footsteps of your parents, because we honor your dear mother here tonight also. And this fight for liberation and justice continues, and the life and witness of Malcolm X will never be extinguished. He is forever and always our shining Black prince. We thank you tonight, Ms. Shabazz. No justice, no
That's
peace,
right.
no justice, no peace. And as they said at the end of Brother Malcolm X's movie, I am Malcolm X. Thank you, my dear sister.
so
We
much.
love you.
Yes.
Ashe, Amin, and good night. Well, tonight I have the distinct privilege and honor to be here with the Cutting Up Dance Crew as they prepare to take the stage. Who do we have here tonight?
What's up, everybody? My name is Coach T.
Hey, y'all. I'm the team lead, Samaya.
And we are
Cutting Up with a K!
And we are so glad to have them tonight, y'all. They are on fire. And so without any further ado, give it up for the Cutting Up Dance Crew.
All right.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
'Cause you been there to my only chance to know what is what. 'Cause you got the nail to my own, an object I can't even control. Set me free. Pull the nail out with your teeth. Set me free. Don't leave me wasted.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad does he teach hate, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God made you.
Shoulder to the fissures that keep us divided. Can't hold on to quiet, can't keep me away. Set me free. Pull the nail out with your teeth. Set me free. Don't leave me wasted. Set me free. Pull the nail out with your teeth. Set me free.
When glass shatters, who is there to pick up all the pieces, placing each fragment back like an equation? How many shards of yourself were scattered so generations can see the sharpness and greatness of your tongue, of your speech, of your devotion, of your devotion, of your devotion to family, to Allah, to your people? How many times did you stand in the sun's brightness, hoping your people could see a reflection of themselves in your beautiful jagged mirror? What did you do with all those whispers. He was a part of me. He was me. He was a black man. He stood for black liberation. He meant deliverance. Malcolm was our manhood, our living black manhood. What a vision to carry, with all the hearts you worked on holding, in this full glass called your life. So at this moment, I honor the glint in your smile, to remind the ones who fought and forgot to do so in the midst of this chaos. I honor the charismatic energy, to remind others that it is their choice to vibrate higher. And I honor the militancy in your peace, because we should declare our rights on this earth to be human, to be human, to be human, to be human, not broken, but human. So may we gather all of those pieces and make ourselves whole.
Thank you to Coach T and the Cutting Up Dance crew. Them babies showed us how we have got to get free. And so I don't know about you, but this program is getting gooder and gooder, as the old folks would say. And so tonight, I am so grateful to have here in the studio with me, NAAM, a powerful local poet who is speaking truth to power. So join me in welcoming NAAM to the stage. Na, come on in. Good to have you with us tonight. Hey, have a seat. Right. Take it easy. Na, thank you for joining us. So tell us, who is NAAM and why you are here tonight?
Ooh, who is NAAM?
Yeah.
NAAM is a poet, a teaching artist, a wife bend, a sibling, aunt, uncle, everything. I am everything in between and around. And another word that I've coined myself is a sound and word practitioner.
Say more about that.
Sound and word practitioner is basically how I look at it through sound, and that could be through music, that can be through different instruments that are for vibrational healing of the body.
That's good.
And word, whatever we speak, there is an energy behind it. And when I do the work of sound healing, I mix not only my words, but the words of the person or the client that I'm working with, so they can get a full-on process to whatever they are looking to be healed from. And knowing that that process is not something that is easy and the process is not quick, but the process is necessary. So I am just a guide through that process.
That's good now. And so I hear you when you say it is a process and you are using your voice to bring that freedom and that liberation. And that is what Brother Malcolm did. I mean, he's one of the greatest orators of our time. And so he spoke truth to power. Right. He did all, his messages were poetry in motion. So tell us why did you feel you wanted to be a part of tonight's commemoration and celebration of the life of Brother Malcolm?
I got a chance. I mean, I've even from years ago, I listened to his speeches, actually when I was doing overnight work back in New York. And it kept me going. And, you know, I wasn't even born around this time that these speeches were made, but I can hear the urgency, and I can hear the truth, and I can hear the wisdom, and I can hear the knowledge. And that is what kept me going throughout the night. And even getting a chance, even before this event, just watching the documentary and listening more to his speeches, I'm like, his truth reigns true today.
Yes.
And I needed to hear that. And it's that gift that we've received that was taken from us. Are we getting a chance to see that gift today? There are different variations, but nothing and no one can be like Malcolm X.
That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And your piece tonight was so powerful. It just hit me when you said, our manhood. Our manhood. I mean, Malcolm was so much. He was so much to so many of us. I mean, I wasn't alive when he walked the earth, but I mean, even in his death, I am still like, I am Malcolm. I love at the end of the movie, Spike Lee's movie, where they say, I am Malcolm X. Like, that is just like so powerful because we are the descendants and the people who come after Malcolm X to continue his vision. And so tonight, I would just love for you, I know you have given us your words on the paper, but give us just some closing words in terms of how we as the people should continue to go forward and continue the work of Brother Malcolm.
There was one thing that I remember Brother Malcolm talking about, and he talked about a bridge. He talked about the bridge from the Black Americans that are here in the States to the bridge going to the continent, the motherland of Africa. And if there's one thing that I've recognized, that sometimes that bridge gets rocky and it's shaky and it needs to be connected again, because one quote, I might be misquoting him, but he was like, the one thing that we have a connection is that we are all Black.
Yes.
All of us, our skin is Black. And that connection should bring us so much farther than we are here today.
That's it.
And if we can make that connection, make that continental connection, the power that we can have, and putting so many things to the side and just sitting with each other, no matter what it is, but sitting with each other and focusing on the goal and the plan. And that's what he was looking towards. And I feel like we need to do the same. This aspect of how we look at each other and how we judge each other needs to shift, because there are too many people out there that are already judging us, that are already looking at us in a different way. And we don't have time. We don't have time. And there's so much time that has been wasted. There needs to be that bridge. And if there's one thing that I would say is that we need to push that bridge, shift out of whatever we might think that we know and learn, so we can connect that bridge and be a force.
Nah, I got to lift my fist for that one. Thank you. I mean, y'all at home, come on and give me some snaps, because we got not just a local poet, we got an international poet here on tonight. And I'm grateful. I thank you, Nah, for taking time to grace us with your power, with your presence, and with your brilliance, and just the tenacity to give us the wisdom that we have got to continue the work of Brother Malcolm. And so we honor you tonight. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Everybody, make sure y'all check Nah, Akua out. Power right here. Thank you, Nah, for joining us.
Thank you. Definitely.
What a night, what a night, what a night this has been. Oh, glory to God. Necklace, what are you doing? Okay, is that cool? Okay. I think and when I move, it moves. Ugh. Okay. What a night, what a night, what a night this has been. I don't know about you all, but my spirit and my soul is stirred from tonight's event. We have had such a powerful time of remembering the life of our Black shining prince, Brother Malcolm. And we are so grateful you have joined us tonight. And we know that tonight was a rallying call for us to remember the work of Brother Malcolm, and to remember that it is up to us to keep his work alive and to do the work of justice and liberation for all people. So tonight, I hope you're ready and stirred up to get ready to do this work of justice. And so before we leave, we have to give some special thanks on tonight. We want to thank tonight's performers, Jason Turner and Kent Stevenson. We also want to thank Cutting Up Dance Crew. Those babies showed us tonight what it looks like to be free and to live and to walk in our freedom. And we also want to thank local and international, I would say, poet Na Akua for speaking truth to power on tonight. And special thanks to Seattle Central College president and the college, the sponsors of our Malcolm X Day celebration, and thanks to the Northwest African American Museum for hosting this great occasion. And please make sure that you go on and like NAAM on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And please make sure you get your tickets for Saturday's drive-up film of Spike Lee's movie, Malcolm X. And so y'all, I'm gonna be there, so I hope to see you there. So make sure you get your tickets soon because spaces are limited. And so I thank you tonight. Let us go forward in this fight for justice, for freedom and liberation for all humanity. I am Erica Williams, and I thank you so much for joining us tonight. God bless you.